listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
Welcome to another edition of the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. I'm your host, Femi Abebefe. As always, make sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. And it's a Monday as we continue, Michael, to have on cool people in the world of football that we like to talk to. And nothing cooler than getting an active coach in the game. And we have our buddy, your buddy, personally, and maybe a new buddy of mine, University of Michigan defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale, joining us here on the GM Shuffle. Wink, what's up, man? Thanks for hopping on with us. We really appreciate this.
Oh, thanks for having me. How you all doing?
Doing excellent.
Well, we're doing great seeing you in your uniform. I love that. I love when you had your picture taken at Newark Airport in your uniform. I mean, I love it. Steve Jobs has a uniform. Wink has a uniform. I mean, why not? So let's talk about your journey here to Michigan. How are you adapting to it? How do you like it? And, give us a little bit of a difference between what you see in the college game as it relates to what you see in the pro game.
I tell you, Mike, it's been a lot of fun to start off with, but the hardest adjustment for me has been, being in the NFL for the last 20 years, you have your routine of 20 years. And then going back into the college, you think but it's completely different as far as, the spring ball is just like another season. Jesse told me when I was coming up here, he said, hey, at Michigan, every day is Tuesday. And at first I'm like, what are you talking about? And every day is Tuesday. It's football 24/7. And it's if you're a football freak, you love it. And I mean, these kids up here are unbelievable. And even in their time off, like, we were gone, obviously recruiting the whole month of May, but like you're leaving the office and there's a group of 10 to 12 guys that are out down there in the indoor in the Glick. They're working out. They're working on one-on-ones, they're working on technique, and it's pretty cool, and it's really good for the heart for the football purist to go out there and see the work that these guys put in. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder why this team won a national title last year and was as dominant as they are, because they got a lot of self-starters in the program who put in a lot of the work here. From a scheme standpoint, I know a lot of fans are interested. I'm sure you've been asked this question throughout the offseason. Jesse Minter leaving to take the Chargers job, become the defensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh. It's the same scheme that you guys were running. I mean, Minter was working for you on your defensive staff when you were in Baltimore. Do you tweak anything? Like, how do you put your own spin on this to kind of make things fresh for these guys who obviously they know the scheme very well, but maybe you kind of do things a little bit differently since you're not Jesse Minter, you're Wink Martindale?
Well, I think that's just it. And prior to that, it was Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald worked with us in Baltimore as well. And, the system is the system. It's very flexible. It's very player-friendly. When you get into the sub stuff, I say it's a positionless defense that has a lot of flexibility. And once you understand the concepts, it's easy to learn the defense. But it's also, different personalities calling the defense. And, I think that at the college level, there's a lot of more simulated pressures that you see when you're watching tape that work just as effectively as sending them all. So I think that, it's going to be a wait and see once we get through fall camp and everything else. But let's make no mistake about it. I'm more aggressive than probably both those guys, sometimes to a fault. Jesse did a fantastic job. I mean, I'm calling him and say, now they changed up some terminology because this is the first year we can do the coach to player communication. So they changed up some of the names. So it's just shorter one word names, which is smart, and it helps you right into, when teams want to go fast and play, you can just say one word. But all the players, the vets that are coming back, they know the system, and it's been really enjoyable and it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, Wink, destroy this myth about, everybody thinks it's zero blitz all the time with the free safety out of the middle of the field, which you and I both know was against the Raider law. that there was no way you could have a defense that didn't have the safety in the middle of the field based on what Al Davis wanted. But like everybody just thinks you run zero blitz all the time because they see people coming from different places. But in reality, what would be the percentage of your 4-man pressures, different looks, 5-man and 6-man?
Well, I think that, like you already alluded to, Mike, when you have free runners at quarterback, the average fan just says, well, he's zero pressure, and we don't. We just attack protections well. In reality, I think it changes from year to year depending on who you have playing for you and who you're playing against. Like the first year we played Mahomes, I think we hit him 18 times back in 18. And then he got so good at seeing pressures and where they were coming from and changing protections. The last year that we played him, we just did anything that looked like a pressure was simulated because there's no reason to blitz it because he sees it and he throws it quick. So I think it's not only by, percentage wise throughout the season, but also per game, per quarterback. It's like depends on.
Yeah, elaborate on that, Wink. Like talk about playing somebody like Mahomes where, he's done his homework, his prep is like, and the confrontation that's going on between him and you, because that's really the chess match, right? I mean, like if you play Philly, it's you and Kelsey. If you play Kansas City, it's you and Mahomes, or if you played New England, it was you and Brady. I mean, you're playing against a guy. And so talk a little bit about that, how you approach that.
To me, that was the most enjoyable thing about Sundays is who you were going against. Like I said before, the first time we played Mahomes, we hit him and we were coming from all different directions. And, by the last time we played him, I think we played him 4 times. I didn't pressure him one time because there was no use of doing it. So what you did then is look at if he doesn't get rid of the ball on time right away in a rhythm, if he did that, it was going to Kelsey, 85% of the time. So what we did in attacking him is we went with our 4th rusher, all right, Abebefe Owe, and tried to reroute Kelsey before he even got into the route and then add him to the rush because it didn't matter if you came free on a blitz, Mahomes is going to make that blitzer miss. It's not like he sees it and gets rid of it real quick. He just knows where it's coming from, knows how to get out of the situation. And, and I've heard you talk on the show 1,000 times about this too, Mike. It's not the first play. It's the second play during that, when the ball snapped. With him, it becomes the third play because he, right when you think you have him, he drops a dime, to Kelsey or, back then it was Tyreek or, those guys. So, like you can come out of a game, like when we finally did beat Kansas City, I think we gave up 28 points, maybe 34, maybe it was 35, 34. I don't remember the exact score. But I walked out of there feeling really good about how we played on defense because we stopped him. The times that you stop him, you got to take off with it from there.
Well, let's stay on that topic because I think Mahomes obviously is like the standard for the position of quarterback. He does the second, the third play. He also is cerebral as well. But as a defensive coordinator, I think a lot of fans would be interested to kind of get inside the mind of what you guys are going through in the week of preparation. Like, is it easier? Not maybe easier, but like what's more challenging? Is it defending that cerebral pocket passer, or is it the guy that can create the second play, even though you might dial something up great, but they just use their athleticism and all of a sudden now here we go with the second play? Like, which one, I guess, is a little bit more challenging to get prepared for as a defensive coordinator?
I don't know, Femi, if there's a quarterback in today's game that is a pocket passer anymore. You had Mannings, you had Brady's, you had Drew Brees, you had those guys that could pick you apart because, they knew, by some guy's stance or, some flinch of a player, where it was coming from and they could beat you that way. I think that you have to have the philosophy now through analytics and everything else of let's get him playing to his weakness. Let's push Josh Allen to our right, his left, because his completion rate goes way down, if you're going to pressure like a Josh Allen, I know I jumped off of Mahomes there, but if you're going to pressure a Josh Allen, you better send big bodies at him because little DBs are just going to bounce off of him. So those are the type of things that you look at game planning wise on what personnel you're going to get out there on third down and why you're doing it to collapse a pocket. You know, you're playing Baker Mayfield. You want to keep him, and Mike's said this a million times too, you want to keep him throwing from the well because that well constricts on him and he has a hard time seeing. You know, just those type of things that are a great challenge every Sunday when you're going out there.
Well, what's harder? Like, I know after every game, I would see you and when you played the Eagles, when you're in New York or even Baltimore, I see you and Kelsey having a conversation after the game. What's harder, confusing Mahomes, Brady, Manning, or confusing the center? Because sometimes I don't think the center can see as much as the quarterback can.
Well, Kelsey's a different animal. To me, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. You know, we've become friends over the years because he could see it and he studies it. He works at it as a center. But you're absolutely right. With most centers, it's not that way. You can move late, show things late where they can't see it after they've made their checks. But what's the issue is when you have a center that's good. I'm not saying great like Kelsey, but that's good at seeing some things, and then you have a quarterback on top of it. You know, it's harder to break the rules of their protections. There's not that many that are that way, though. You know, when you go to play them, you know, you can beat their protections. And if you ask any offensive coordinator, you know, that's one thing that we've always been good at is breaking their protection rules. And you know, that's been a great challenge and a lot of enjoyment in my career, you know, in the league.
Yeah, no, I think that's really interesting. It's almost like you're trying to find, we talk about it all the time with offensive guys and Kyle Shanahan knowing defensive rules and those principles, but just like those guys, for defensive guys, you have to know the offensive stuff and to go ahead and attack all those protections because that's how you ultimately get to the quarterback and hopefully win games. We're just getting started here with Don Wink Martindale here on the GM Shuffle. On the other side, we'll ask about some advice for young defensive coordinators looking to reach the pinnacle that he has, and also maybe some of those days back in Oakland when he and Lombardi first met. We'll discuss it next year on the GM Shuffle.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN. Here is Femi Abebefe.
All right, we're rolling along here on the GM Shuffle here. We're speaking with University of Michigan defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale. I'm curious because I do want to get to some of the challenges that young defensive coordinators face. You've been in that position before and guys who are in that position right now. But where do you kind of get your creative inspiration from? Because I always envision the coordinators, like you're trying to come up with these different schemes and these exotic blitzes and all these exotic coverages. Where does that inspiration come from? Is it just through watching different stuff? Are you taking from different people? How do you kind of come up with all these things that ultimately make up your system?
Well, I think that, you know, it's been the years of experience, and as Mike says, trying to make them your expertise. Of different people that we've worked with. You know, like Mike was huge in my career. When I first got into the NFL, Mike was there in Oakland with me. And I mean, he taught me so many different things from the pro game, you know, looking through the lens of the pro game, not college. And I mean, I wouldn't have been able to get where I was at without having Mike in my career. And, you know, and then obviously with the great Al Davis. For some reason, he took a liking to me, and you know, I know, you know, through Mike, he said, if you have an opinion, make sure you stick with that opinion because he's going to try to get you off of it, and then once he gets you off of it, he's going to kill you. You know, those are the two. There's two things that I remember working for Al Davis was I watched enough people come up to him and say, "Hey, Mr. Davis, how are you doing?" Which is the definite no-no of doing that, you know, because he said, "I'll tell you how I'm doing. I haven't been," you know, and it was a lot more colorful than that. So whenever I saw Mr. Davis, it would be Mr. Davis, and I'd just keep walking, you know. And the saying that, you know, Mike, I've heard him say it on the show too, is don't go pet the tiger. Let the tiger call you, but don't go pet the tiger. And that was great advice. But I've sat and I've been fortunate to be with Mike and talk about a lot of different players. And I think that putting a defensive system together, putting a draft together, whether it's free agency or not, you have to always be willing to learn every day you walk into the office. Because once you stop learning anything, you start dying. And I'm trying to keep the old man away. And and there's things, here in Michigan, there's 3, college defensive coordinators on our staff. And if you don't think that I ask them questions every day, you're crazy, because they've been in it at different levels, all different places. And, I think it helps. It puts a different, it's still the same scheme. Okay. And I'll get to answer your question too, Femi, about where it all originated from. It's still the same scheme, but when you put different personalities in it, and you always look at it, we instead of me, and we all know there's a lot of coaches that are me, I. When you say we instead of me, and you mean it, and I look at them as my peers, that it's my job to get those guys ready to be a coordinator at a higher level. And when you start looking at it as developing players and coaches, I think that's when you're truly giving back to the game. People of influence, obviously, I worked with Rex Ryan and John Harbaugh way back 1996 at University of Cincinnati, and got to know Buddy Ryan really well. Then, when I, went some different places, I was studying all the 46 defense, all that stuff. And then as my career grew, you start getting involved in different defenses as just a position coach. And, it's like I said, when I went and interviewed with Norv Turner out at Oakland, and going into the interview, I didn't know if we were going to be 3-4 or 4-3. And on top of that, I had the suit guy in Bowling Green, Kentucky, had to give me a sport coat because I didn't have a sport coat back then to even go to the interview. So I was a little nervous on that one. Like I said, having somebody like Mike there really helped me out. But in 2018, or after the 17 season, when John named me defensive coordinator in Baltimore, so it's really John that started getting the wheels going for all of us in the room. And, he said, I don't want to just be locked in on this front all the time. How can we change our fronts? So we have that conversation. You can set the front 8 different ways in this scheme. And it, makes it simple. Now, do you use all 8 during the season? Probably not, but you have them in the package where you're flexible enough to do that. And it's all the different fronts, and then, same thing with pressures. So that's what I was talking about earlier, Femi, about once you understand the concepts, how we go 4 strong, how we go 5 strong, all those different concepts that we have, we're not making up names that they have to remember that week. It's still the same call, but we change the people. We have count 'em outs. It's 5 guys. Someone's off the edge, and you can move. Each guy can play a different spot, and attacking it. But it was really John that gave us the charge to do that. And as you guys have said before, John is a phenomenal coach. That whole family, obviously, me coming up here to Michigan, I worked for Jack in Western Kentucky. Major influences. One of the big influences with me was Skip Holtz and Lou Holtz. I worked for Coach Holtz at Notre Dame in 94 and 95. One of the finest game day coaches I've ever been around. And I see the look in your eye, Mike. I know what you're going to go to next.
No, we could spend all day on stories. I mean, we could take Lou's stories. We could take Al's stories. I mean, you started the Al story, and I don't think all I tried to do was warn you when you came in. You had that bright look, and I just was trying to make sure that he didn't just squash you immediately because he's like a lion that loves to take care of the little lions and make sure he's in charge. But, it's funny when we talk about that. I can remember sitting on an airplane with you. We're flying back from the combine, Femi, and I think it was Thomas Howard, right? he ran this incredible 40 time at the combine. You remember this, Wink? And so you and I are sitting there, and I'm saying, Wink, you got two choices here, Wink. If you like Thomas Howard, he's going to play devil's advocate, and he's going to tell you why Thomas Howard sucks. And if you don't like Thomas Howard, he's going to take the position he's got to sell you on Thomas Howard. So you got to make a decision. Forget about what you think of Thomas Howard. That's irrelevant. You got to make a decision on how the fuck you want to approach this, because if you're right, and if it's his idea where he's selling you on the guy, then it's a lot easier than if you're trying to sell him on the guy and he's playing devil's advocate. Oh, fuck, Donnie, I don't think he can do that. No, I don't see what you see. I don't understand it. Oh, fuck, I guess I'll see it. All right, okay. And then we go on and on like that. And then, at the end of the day, you're left with who's ever, it's going to be your fault if it's bad, and it's going to be his idea if it's good. So I said to him, just tell him what the fuck you think. It ain't going to work any other way, right? Do you remember that?
Right. No, I remember like it was yesterday. UTEP. I don't know if you remember this. Like you said, we could tell stories all day. So my first go around the draft in Oakland, one of the scouts put a kill tape on a guy that I liked. So that's when I found out about the kill tape. So any tape that I made, Femi, they were going to be highlight tapes. Now, God rest Thomas's soul. Fantastic person, fantastic player for us. He was phenomenal. What do you have, like 7 interceptions in 2 years at the linebacker position? But I remember this. It took me all 4 years to find like 32 highlight plays where you're like, this is the guy. But you saw it at the combine, but it's one of those deals where you really fell in love at the combine because of how he interviewed and what a great person he was, and then how well he ran, where we knew, just like you guys have said many times on the show, he's the perfect Raider fit. We knew that one way or the other, he was going to be a Raider.
I mean, there were certain guys that when we came back from the combine, there were certain guys that you just knew were going to be on the team, whether you wanted them or not. I mean, and how you positioned yourself in that environment. I mean, we were sitting there, and all of us, we coached literally at the Senior Bowl one year, and we all liked Kirk Morrison, and Al wanted Jordan Beck and this kid from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. And I was really nervous about Cal Poly at the time because,
Who still has
he had a bad foot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was worried about Cal Poly, Femi, because back then, do you remember that? I forget what that karate thing. They had this thing down in San Luis Obispo where they were all doing tap X, tap out. Remember this? Remember, Wink?
Yep, the UFC stuff.
That was tap out. And I thought everybody down there was taking juice. Like, there was a time where every player, like Cal Poly was putting like 3 guys in the NFL every fucking year. It was like there's something going on in that gym down there that didn't meet my eye, right? And ever since we drafted Jeff Briegel when I was at the 49ers and I had to do a book report on steroids for Coach Walsh, I've been obsessed with like am I getting fooled by this or not? And so, but he loved Beck because Beck ran fast. And so we were literally, this was like Shiloh in the Civil War. We were having a bloodbath in the draft room. And he basically says in the second round, I mean, we're losing prisoners left and right. It's so fucking bad. There's casualties all over. We're stepping over bodies. And we lose. We're down to no army, and Kingdon's over there still looking for his fucking glasses because he can't find them. And so we're down to nobody, and he makes the proclamation, I'll take Morrison if he's there in the third. And he never thought he would be there in the third. And so, of course, he's there in the third, and we take him, and he's fucking pissed. And my man Pat Jones is sitting over there in the corner. Now, Pat was one of those guys who said nothing, never said a fucking word, right? Loved the guy to death. Pat was a great guy, but Pat wasn't going to get in any kind of other than, how you doing, Mr. Davis? God, that chocolate cake looks good. He's not going to do anything, right? And so, like 3 picks later, Jordan Beck goes to the Super Bowl winning franchise of the Atlanta Falcons, picked by Kaiser Sose McKay, right? And he gets picked, and all of a sudden, fucking Pat comes out and says, Beck just went. And you talk about, like, that became Vicksburg, Gettysburg, Shiloh, all wrapped into one. Then there was nobody left in the room except me, and I'm taking all the shrapnel. I know we got to go to break. We come back, we'll tell a couple more. We got to tell a Lou Holtz story, though.
Yeah, we got to get more of that. Let's take a quick break. This is the GM Shuffle.
All right.
We're going to keep the stories rolling here on the GM Shuffle with University of Michigan defensive coordinator Don Wink Martindale. And in the last segment, you alluded to some Lou Holtz stories during your time at Notre Dame, 1994 and 1995. Please share with us. What's your best Lou Holtz stuff? The folks want to know, the listeners, I'm sure.
Well, let me set it up first.
Please.
When I hear Ty Schmidt on Pat McAfee when he does, I'm like, all I want is Ty and Wink to be in the room at the same time, because I think Wink does as good as any of them. But to me, Wink and I would sit in the back of the bus, and after the Art Shell season where I was getting my ass kicked every fucking week, and it was my fault that we were losing because we hired Art Shell. I'm like just taking it, and I just Wink, just give me a couple loose stories, please. So without much further ado, give me the story what you had to do for Lou. See, I think not a lot of people understand that. When we all got started in this business, I don't want to sound like I remember when because it's the lowest form of conversation, but we all had to do chores. I had to get Harvey Heights car wash, and Wink was working as a graduate assistant at Notre Dame, and you take it from there.
No doubt. Whenever, okay, I'll tell you that one. That's a good lead in. So whenever, Coach Holtz was one of the originators of, going out and doing speaking engagements. And I had to pick him up at like 1:30 in the morning at Chicago O'Hare Airport. His car, you had to always, whenever anybody took him anywhere, you always had to have a cooler with 2 caffeine-free Diet Cokes, okay, 2 Snicker bars, and a Wendy's grilled chicken sandwich, plain, okay? I'm telling you, Femi, I don't know if he ever got into the cooler one time when I was with him, but you always had to have that. So wherever he was picked up, that's what you had. So I pick him up at the airport, and he has this blanket.
When would you buy the chicken sandwich? Would you buy the chicken sandwich in South Bend, or would you buy it when you got to Chicago?
I wasn't going to take that chance. I bought it in South Bend, and I kept it in a heating deal, so if he ever wanted it,
see the details you got to have, Femi, with this shit. You got to have details with this. This is important because if it's a cold sandwich, you're not going to be a great coach. I'm just telling you, these are the kind of details you got to have. Continue, my man.
No doubt. And so he said, "Hey, Wink, I'll drive." So he gets in the car. I get everything loaded up. I got the cooler back there. You need anything, Coach? No, I'm good. And I mean, I was white knuckled on the shit handle and the dashboard because we were doing 90 going back to South Bend. He wanted to get home. He was tired. Sure enough, Highway Patrol lights it up. So he looks over at me and goes, "Sometimes it pays to be the head coach at University of Notre Dame." I'm like, that's odd. Okay. Yes, sir. So the guy comes up and says, "How you doing, officer?" Make sure he stood out to him so he knew who he was. "I'm doing fine, sir. Can I have your registration and license?" "Well, I guess." He's already getting mad. "I guess. Here you go." So the guy comes back. I'm trying to shorten the story up. And I'm not even looking now. I'm looking out the window on the other side, on the side of the road. And he goes, "Sir, you were doing 92. I have to give you a ticket." "Well, just give me the damn ticket. And I tell you what, you can go down the road 3 miles, and I'm going to go by you doing that damn fast again." He said, "Mr. Holtz, there's one other thing I want to tell you." "What's that?" "Go blue." And Lou hit the gas. I mean, he barely grabbed his license. He hit the gas. I know he threw gravel on his car. And we were going down the road. I'm like, I'm going to be in a holding cell with Lou Holtz. And thank God no one else got him the rest of the way. But there's so many of those different things like Mike talks about all the time that you did back then. That one time Tony Yelovich was the recruiting coordinator, and we didn't have a punt returner. This is my first year there, and I'm not saying anything. I'm sitting in the back corner. I'm just taking notes. And I'm like, I was coaching high school football. I know there's a punt returner here. He's on the baseball team. So I wait like 3 hours. I'm pacing. I go see his assistant, Jan, God love her. And I'm finally like, I need to see Coach. So I go in there and I said, Coach, we have a punt returner here. Why didn't you bring it up in the damn ass meeting? I mean, I've just been there for like 3 weeks. Why didn't you bring it up in the damn ass meeting? You're part of this staff. Who's the damn ass returner? Who are you talking about? I said, the center fielder. He got drafted by the Tigers, too. I said, center fielder, Scott Solman. He goes, all right, well, I'll take a look at it. Now, next time, speak your ad. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir, I will. So the next day, that's back when, I don't know if they still have it. They had the blue and gold come out like every Tuesday or Wednesday. Headlines on the front page. Lou finds his punt returner. Article about Scott Solman. Now I'm into deep prayer. Please be able to catch a punt. And we had Hunter Smith. Remember him, Mike, Hunter the punter from Texas A&M? He could punted for the Colts. Mm-hmm. Remember him? But punted for Indy. So Scott Solman comes out, and he looked like a little kid dressed up for Halloween in his pads. His shoulder pads were clanking. He come out, and I'm like, and at that time, Ron Paulus was the quarterback. He's like, because of course I was talking shit to Paulus. I'm like, here's my guy. First 2 punts, Hunter nails them. First one bounces off his face mask. Oh. The other one bounces off his shoulder pad. And Ron Paulus looked at me. He goes, Wink, you're fired. Probably. So Lou goes, no, come here, because he's already played his son. This is his guy. And he goes, so he goes back to show Scott how to catch a punt. Like Lou's 87, he was 48, 49 now. Coach Holtz was. He goes back, and the ball hits Lou right on the tip of his ring finger. Oh, hell no, trainer, Jim Russ. Now, the rest of the story is Scott Solman single-handedly beat Purdue. He returned the punt and scored two. He was a slot receiver. Kid had a great college career. I don't think he made it in the major leagues, but he played for the Tigers. But those kinds of stories, when you have the experience that Mike and I both have, there's some great ones. And I was just fortunate enough to be with Mike, like I said, with the Raiders. Mike and I, he's a dear friend of mine. That's not why I listen to your show. I think your show has great content. I think half the NFL that does listen to your show is not going to tell you, because they don't want to tell you that they're listening to you guys with some of the ideas that Mike has. And the other half are friends like me that I text him a lot of times and say, it has a great show. There's like I said, it's a great show, and I'm
you're
just
too
so
kind.
happy to be
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you.
You're too kind. It was really, I make fun of Al. We tease about Al, but the brilliance of the man was beyond. And, his ability to anticipate. I think the thing that we all learned working there, and I say we because it was, when you worked for Al, it was you were working together, because it was you against Al. And it worked as an organization when we all worked as everybody worked against him, as opposed to, because he was never going to be on a team. You could never get him on a team. So, and that wasn't his job. His job was to play devil's advocate. That's his role as an owner. And so when we all were formulated as a team and we all got along and we all worked in harmony, we could get something done. And so, but you also learned players and plays, which I think we miss so much. As you do, because as you prepare for your game plan, you're looking at players and plays. You're just not blitzing the blitz. You're looking at, how do I manufacture production out of players within the scheme? And I think it's become a lost art. And I think guys just spend too much time on chalkboards or grease boards drawing shit up, as opposed to understanding how the player fits the play.
Right. That's just like Isaiah Simmons. I still, to this day, one of the highest grades I've ever given in the draft. I believe in him. Now, he's got to find the right coordinator that believes in him, that has the system. that can move him around for him to play at his best level. And he's still young in his career. It'd be interesting to see where he what he ends up doing. But, it's those type of things that Mike and I have had many of conversations, and I talk to Mike all the time. If I'm stuck, I'll call Mike and say, "What do you think?" And he's not only been a great friend, but he's been a great advisor and mentor for me. And I'm glad to be on the show where I can actually say it. And you guys are doing a great job with this.
Well, you're too kind, Wink.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
We appreciate you having. We could tell Al's stories, and we could tell Rob Ryan's stories till the day comes home with. We didn't even add Rob in this conversation. When Rob and Wink tried to run a coverage that Al put in against the Kansas City Chiefs, and Eddie Kennison took it for a touchdown. And all week long, Wink, you remember this? All week long, I kept going over to you guys. What is that coverage? And I cut it out on Wednesday practice. I cut it out on Thursday. I cut it out on Friday. All week long, I had it, and I was waiting for him to ask me what the coverage was. And he never asked. And, usually after every practice, did you see what they were doing? What are they thinking about? Why would they do that? You better get them straightened out. I mean, these fucking guys, they're going to kill us. And I'm not the head coach, right? Like, I have nothing to do, And so anyway, we're playing the Chiefs, and they're really good, man. They're really good. They got Gonzalez. They got Jason Dunn on the line. They got a great Willie Rove. They got Priest Holmes, Trent Green. I mean, they're good. We have no business being in there. All I could think about was that horse running around after they scored every fucking touchdown. But anyway, so we're playing them at home, and we got a lead. I think we're winning 31-27. We got a 4-point lead late in the game, and we run that coverage, and it looks like we're playing some kind of 2, but it converts into a 3, and they run a slim post to Eddie Kennison, and fucking Trent Green hits him on the 5th step, and he's still running to this day. And I mean, my phone lights up. My phone lights up that night. I mean, it just fucking lights up, firing it, and he's yelling at me. And I'm like, Mr. Davis, I cut that coverage out. I didn't understand what we were trying to do. And I waited for Wink and Rob to come into work that morning. And I just sat out in front right there, like at 5:30, and I could see Rob still walking in, eating Good and Plenty's. He's got Good and Plenty's in his fucking hand. He's shaking along. Remember that way? I'm fucking happier and shit. I said, Rob, you're going to get your ass fired today. And Rob's like, what are you talking about? He made me put that coverage in.
Yeah,
that's what we were dealing with.
That's great stuff.
Is that not a true story, Wink?
That is a true story. And Femi, what he didn't tell you was whenever Mr. Davis would get on the plane, all the assistant coaches would go like this.
Oh, no.
And act like we're asleep.
So we're not answering any questions.
Nobody understands it. I mean, nobody understands it. They all went to sleep, and I had to sit next to the fucking guy, and I had to sit there and fucking take it on the chin, and thank God Jim Otto and Sally Otto were sitting behind, so at least she kind of she didn't want to hear him cursing all the time, so I think he kind of played it soft, but God bless him. Anyway, Wink, we can't thank you enough for being here, man. Thank you. You're welcome anytime.
You are.
Please. Wish you the best of luck in Michigan.
I love it. Thank you, guys, and go Blue.
There we go. That is Don Wink
Go
Martindale.
Blue. Thank you, Wink.
Defensive coordinator for University of Michigan. Like Michael said, I'll echo his sentiment. You are welcome anytime, and we do truly appreciate the kind words here. And that does it for us here on this edition of the GM Shuffle. A fun podcast, great stories from back then in the world of football. But thank you to our producer, Elliot Bowman, with us on the ones and twos. Thank you to Don Wink Martindale for joining us. Thank you to you, Michael. We'll talk to everybody later on this week. Hope you guys all enjoyed the podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review. As always, we'll see you later on.